Hey there YouTube, Doc and Doc's Motorcycle Service. Rawr, 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 rawr. Welcome back to the shop. YouTube, I'm so glad that you're here. I just want to take a quick moment to, if you've stumbled on this video and it's the first time you've seen me, my name is Doc. I run Doc's Motorcycle Service. And what we do here is we try to take those individuals that has a basic foundation of understanding along with an ample amount of comprehension and application and basic mechanical skills to teach that person how to save some money by doing their own work on their motorcycles. That is my target audience and has been since the beginning of this series. Now, what is this series? This series is Hot Donna. Hot Donna is a 1986 Heritage Softail that was brought to me by the owner to have some work done on. And in this series, we got started on the motorcycle, but we really didn't start at the beginning with the videos. That's why we're now going to go forward to go backward to come forward again. Hot Donna was abused by a lot of people. She had a lot of owners, and each one of those owners had their own goal in mind for what they wanted out of this Heritage Softail. And because of that, she had gotten pretty chopped up over the years. But there was an electrical issue that started this restoration. It started off by being an electrical issue that required us to go into the primary to replace the stator. And while the bike was in that condition of disarray, that the decision was made to take her down to the frame and completely restore her pretty close to factory. Not actually factory, but pretty close to factory. And that's what we're doing in this series. I'll put a little link right here to the beginning of that series, and somewhere in a moment up here will be a link to the previous video. But to go forward, we have to go back a little bit. We were in another house then. We had a two-car garage that was attached to a residential home, which is where Doc's Motorcycle Service was born. But during the restoration process, we ended up moving. So we had to go out of sequence with putting Donna back together because we had to make her mobile. She was up on a lift, the rear end was out of the bike, and we had to be able to get her off the lift and onto a trailer to go in storage for 18 months while we got the shop built. And there'll be a little link right here to the first video on the shop. And now we're caught up. And along the way we had some computer issues and we lost some videos. I'm sure we lost some, but we also found some that I didn't know I had. When I took the laptop to the guy who actually got it fixed, he actually found some photos somewhere on there that actually showed the pictures that we took to Tech Tip, Pro Tip. When you start taking something apart, you will want to take pictures of it. Back in the day, people used Kodaks and Instamatics to take pictures of stuff. Nowadays we have smartphones, so you can actually snap a pic on every step that you took to remove something. Taking a picture of the bolt, taking a picture of a part, taking a picture of a flange, and walk step by step through putting this thing back together based off of the pictures that you have on your smartphone that you saved. All right, so that's a little tech tip right there. I mean, I can pull the service manual out right here and show you in there in the service manual where it tells you to take pictures, and that service manual was printed originally in 1986. Okay, so work smarter, not harder. But what we had to do with Donna was, and I'm looking at her off camera over here, we had to be able to get her off the lift, so we had to interrupt the drivetrain video part of the series in order to get the rear wheel in her and make her mobile. She's right over here now. She's good to go, and we're ready to move forward with completing her. But we're going to go back just a little bit because of those pictures the computer guy found, and it actually shows you what started this process. So let's go ahead and take a look at those pictures now, and I'm going to do a little voiceover as we look at them to give you an idea of what was wrong with the bike, what started this, and give you some more insight into understanding how your motorcycle runs. So let's take a look at that. This is a picture of Hot Donna with her belt drive system on the lift the day we started to take her apart. And I want to draw your attention to this area right here of the inner primary. See that notch? And I want to draw your attention right here to this part of the outer primary that's been chopped up. There's another look at the notch in the top of the inner primary, and we'll zoom in on that. And this is going to be really important. As I mentioned, this motorcycle had been owned by a lot of different people in her many years of existence. The problem was it was a first generation Softail, and that's important. First generation of anything is the first one of its kind. And when they design these things, they try to make them flawless. And most of the time they do in any first generation something. But after the public uses it, after people use it, they get feedback on what could be done better. All right? So it being a first generation Heritage Softail, I could not find an inner primary. You remember the notch that I showed you? And I'll put the picture back up here. That was out of the top of the inner primary. Well, that was cut out because where that was located at, there was also a bolt hole there for the outer primary to bolt into. The bottom edge of the bolt hole for the inner primary was in the way of the belt. And guess what? There was one on the bottom as well. So the previous owner said, I want this belt drive to work and I don't want to buy an inner primary. So guess what he did? He cut it out. That's why there's an opening notch at the top and an opening notch at the bottom. And obviously, this could be repaired. Okay, it could be repaired. But why go through all of that process and whatever that might cost to try to repair this one? So I scoured the earth. And when I mean the earth, I mean the earth. I must have looked for 3 months everywhere I possibly could to find one to fit this. But guess what? It's a first generation. They didn't make any replacement parts. And if they did, they're already gone. I mean, my God, this thing's 38 years old. So we went ahead and made another executive decision. In order to close it up, we decided to step it up to an 89 to 93 model inner and outer primary. And that's the new ones that you're going to see here. So the decision was made to close it up after we discovered what the problem was and why she wasn't charging. You may want to go back and take a look at that charging system video. I'll put a little link to it right here to understand how the charging system on the motorcycle works. But in essence, it was not charging. Through a process of elimination, we discovered why. Those two wires come around here to a hole in the inner primary. You see them there held by that clip. There's the hole. And what they do is they pass through that hole to make contact with the stator, which is behind this black piece right here, behind the belt pulley. And here was the problem. If you'll look in there, you'll see how gummed up that is. You'll see the piece for the stator here in a minute, but it almost looks like it's shorted out. Now here is the belt pulley, and you'll see the bell behind it. So we had to take off the cover to access the belt pulley, and then once we were able to get the pulley off, you can see the bell right there on the left, that solid brown, solid black piece of metal, and behind it, the stator, which is held on by 3 screws, has a wire coming off of it that passes through that hole that I showed you before. Got the stator off. The stator on a motorcycle does the same thing that an alternator does on your car. it creates amperage or voltage to replenish the volts or the amps in the battery that you use during startup, and to run all the electrical systems on the motorcycle while it's running. Just a brief tech tip here. A lot of people don't understand how the charging system on a vehicle works. They think the battery runs the charging system. It does not. The battery provides cold cranking amps to start your motor. Once your motor starts turning, it spins an alternator on a vehicle or a stator on a motorcycle that creates the voltage and the amps to replenish the battery and bring it back up to a charge. And it provides the electrical source to run the horn and the lights and the radio and the alarm system. And while I'm thinking about it, those of you out there with brand new motorcycles that have alarm systems on them, you just go out on a ride, man, and you come back and you park that bike and you go to jump on it 2 weeks later and it don't start. You're like, I don't understand what's going on. There's nothing drawing electricity on this motorcycle. Wrong. The alarm system is drawing amperage off of the motorcycle. So you should always have a battery tender, a battery charger on your motorcycle. And I'll put a little link right here to my battery tender video. If the link is not up here, look in the comments below. YouTube will only allow me to put 4 links in a video. But I'm telling you, if you've got anything that has a battery in it that you do not drive that often, you need to have a battery tender on it. Watch that video, and it will greatly enhance the life of your battery. And right there, I'm pretty sure is what the problem was. If you'll look at that picture, you'll see how there's all kinds of gook and debris in there that I believe short-circuited the stator. Again, if you have a basic foundation of understanding, you can read a service manual, watch a couple of videos, get the proper tools. You can diagnose these things yourself. I mean, I'm just telling you, man, you can save a lot of money, and that's my goal here, is to help you save money. I had another motorcycle that had a charging issue on it, and it was still under warranty. So I went ahead and decided to diagnose it myself. Determined that the ignition module was bad on it, took it to them because it was under warranty, and I said, hey man, here's the problem. Let's get it fixed and get it back to me. Well, a week goes by and I called them back up and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? You know, where are we at with the bike? And the guy was like, well, you know, we're covered up. We ain't had time to get to it to figure out what's wrong with it. I'm like, brother, I told you what was wrong with it. He's like, well, you know, the warranty works like this. We have to diagnose it ourselves, and we have to check these boxes, and we have to submit a report and everything. I said, I'll tell you what, sport. And I don't throw the word around sport a lot, but when I do, I'm pretty much done with you. I said, look here, sport. Put the seat back on the bike. Do whatever you got to do to the bike. I'm going to be there in an hour, and I'm going to pick it up, and I'll fix it myself. So I went. Linda dropped me off. I got the bike, rolled around front, went to the parts counter, picked up a ignition module for it. I think it was $55. Brought it home. 20 minutes later, it was fixed. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. That's the goal of this channel. I figured with a warranty, why not let them do it? Okay, but at the end of the day, I was going to have a $50 deductible on my warranty anyway that I was going to have to pay out of pocket. Why not pay $25 extra and get it myself? And that, at that moment, was when Doc's Motorcycle Service was born. I said, you know, here we are. People need to know this information, and that is the moment that this channel was created. So I think what happened here was oil got down into this and shorted it out. And here's why I feel that. This is a picture of the motor. I don't think it ever been gone through. If it had been gone through, maybe it hadn't been gone through the right way, but you can see that there was some leakage around the bottom of the heads, what we also call the jugs. And you see how that black oil leaking there. And if you'll notice, down toward the bottom of the picture, right there is where the stator goes. And if you look toward the front here, you can see all that oil leaking down the front of it. Well, guess what? Right there where that hook is, and right there's the hole that these two wires connected together through. And I think just over time, enough oil got through there that it allowed that connection to short out. And that's why the decision was made to do a complete restore on it, because it took us like 10 hours to get into this point. I'm not going to go into how the stator works here. It has copper wire and magnets on it. I don't know how somebody determined that something with copper and magnets on it spinning inside something steel creates electricity. Okay, I'm not that smart, but that's how it works. So that's looking at it with everything off of it that we're going to take off of it. Another view of that. And that's pretty much where we were at. So now let's go ahead and take a look at that footage that we found, along with these pictures of where we were at for this video. So the first thing that we want to do before we put the bushing on is clean this spline up. The trick to having this bushing on here is to make sure that it goes far enough back, but at the same time you need to be able to get it off. I don't know if you can see this. If you look right here, you can see where the previous bushing was on there too far. I'm not going to guess at how the other person got this bushing off, but normally you like to have your bushings, or this particular bushing, about 1/4 inch off of the back. And the purpose behind that is so you can get a claw on it to use a bearing puller to pull it off if you ever need to take it off. What we're going to have to do is we're going to use a race installer, because this is called a race, and we're going to use that to push this up on this shaft. You can see, well, I can see that there's a pitch width right here, and that's about 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the ends of these splines here, this little lip right here, and we're going to put this bushing up to right there. But before we do that, you see all that dried Loctite in there? All that's got to come out. So Linda and I are going to work on that. I'm just going to take my trusty pick. Make sure when you're doing this, you can call this a tech tip, that you're using some safety glasses. I don't know if you can see this stuff popping out of here or not, but it's kind of hard. Can you see it turning, dissolving in there? And there's some high spots right there too. Can you see those? Well, all those, if not removed, are going to give us a problem when we go back and put these other pieces in. So we're going to get this cleaned up. Decide to use a Dremel, be sure and put on some safety glasses. I'm using a little bitty wire brush, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to meticulously clean each one of these grooves out. Then I'm going to take an air hose and I'm going to blow all of this clean. I think she's looking pretty good. You can see the chunks of stuff that we took out of those splines. Remember, if you're going to do a job, do it right. Got a couple little high spots here. Take the chunks off. All this stuff can give you a hard time when you're going back together. Alright, I think we got it ready. Alright, well, we're getting the Linda approval here with them good eyes. This is a race puller, and you'll notice that the race will sit right down in that thing, but it's got to have a little lip on the back to be able to get behind it. If this thing was jammed all the way up there, this puller would not be able to get behind it and pull it off. We want to leave that little gap back there. And this is a professional one. I borrowed this one. You might have seen a claw puller. Well, it's like a 3-claw puller that goes in behind something and pulls it off. Most of the time, those things are round. If I can find a picture, I'll put it up here for you. But most of the time, they need a good 1/4 inch behind them to get off. All right, Linda's on camera. Can they see this, Linda? All right, so here's our bushing. Little tech tip here. You can use a little bit of oil. You can use just a little bit of axle grease or whatever. Just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit. A little dab will do you, as my dad used to say. And you can either put it on here or you can put it on the bushing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to smear it around this shaft. I'm not trying to grease this thing up for an Indianapolis race, okay? I'm just wanting to put a little slickum on it to allow it to go on there a little easier. Now, this shaft will turn. See that? So what we got to do is have a special race inserter, a race tool, if you will, a race puller, race installer, and we're going to put our race on here, and we're going to slide it up till it's just snug. Now let's take this piece, which has reverse threads on it, and we're going to screw it onto this shaft. Now what that does is, that's going to tighten up with the shaft while we take this piece here, slide it over, and because it just barely fits on this, it's going to line up perfect with that race and keep it straight. We're going to put a couple of washers on here. We're going to put a nut on here. We're going to get that tight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a wrench. Adjustable wrenches are fine, and we're going to get this one here adjusted to that size there. We're going to take the bigger one, we're going to adjust it to this nut here, and then we're going to hold this one. And we're going to start pushing this race into position. So it's going to take a little bit because I'm holding with one hand, I'm tightening with the other. While you're doing this, remember our transmission is loose because this needs to go on first. Here's a tech tip. Don't use an impact because an impact wrench will get away from you. Alright, I think we're getting about there. YouTube, you might not be able to see this, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. Well, by gosh, if I didn't stop it right at 1/4 of an inch, right dead on it. Alright, but that's about how you want it to look right there. Again, the idea is that if you ever have to take a race puller, you slide it right back up under there and that'll grab it. A different end will screw into the shaft and it'll pull that race off. So that's how we look now. Nice, and got our space in the back. It's meeting right up. You can see where the splines are ending right there. They shallow up. We're in good shape. Okay, so this is our new outer primary. The inner primary is down here on the bottom. You can see it in there. But typical of these type of products, when you order an outer primary, it doesn't come with a chain inspection cover and it doesn't come with a derby cover. This is the original outer primary for Hot Donna that the owner inherited when he purchased the bike, but was never on the bike after the belt drive was put on. Now, one of the things that he has requested is that we try to move this look to this primary, because this outer primary will not match up with that inner primary. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get pretty with this thing. We're going to take off the derby cover. We're going to take off the chain inspection cover. We're going to make sure that they match up or correspond with these two mounts over here, and if they do, then we're going to send these to the chromer and the powder coater and try to do something kind of neat. But one of the things I did want to show you was when you look at these things, you'll notice all these bolts. All of these bolts do not hold this derby cover on. As you can see, there's only 3 mounting holes up here, and if I flip this one over, you can see that there's only 3 true bolts holding it on. The rest are just there for cosmetics. So we're going to snatch these off. So we got the cover off. You can see those 3 beauty nuts, if you will, that came off with the plate. And I also wanted to show you the gasket that comes out of there. Now this is a tech tip, okay? When you take this thing off, you're going to want to make sure that you put this ring back in good and tight, and we'll talk about this more. You'll see how it's running in front of me here, not wanting to go in. So sometimes you just have to use 2 fingers and smooth it back in. You see how it went back in there, and and it's still not wanting to stay in there because I'm not using both hands. But you want to make sure that's in there, so when you put this cover back on, you don't over tighten it. You can warp these things by over tightening them, something crazy. So we got that one off to go to the chromer. And over here, I was really disappointed when I took this off, because if you look in here, you can see the residue of where there was a gasket, but it wore out right here. You see how the black comes around here and it disappears? So to try to compensate for that, somebody used silicone to try to put in there around those bolt holes. I mean, gaskets aren't that expensive, and as long as you don't over tighten them, you'll be in good shape. So to test these before I take them to the chromer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a flat surface like a piece of glass, and I'm going to lay them down on that flat surface, and then I'm going to try to rock them. See, listen. See how that one's moving? See that crack right there? Well, this is not a good surface to test on because this is a plastic table, and I've had all kinds of weight on it. But I know Linda has something around here. What you might want to look at is you could put it up against a, clean it up first, tech tip, keep you out of trouble with the wife. You could put it up against a picture frame glass. You could put it up against a window pane glass of the window in your house, or a glass cutting board. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and if both of these pieces pass that inspection, then we will send them on to the chromer. Alright, so here's where we're at with what we're going to be putting on in the next video. We've got our inner primary here. Well, let's just start over here. We've got our new stator and our new bell, and we have our regulator rectifier here, and you can see, here's what I was talking about on those new pieces and how they work. This piece here plugs into this piece here. That stator goes on back here, pokes through this hole here, and hooks up with the regulator rectifier. Once we get the stator in, we'll put the bell on. We'll put the new cog for the front of the bike for the chain that goes on the motor. Got the new chain here. We got our new clutch pack here. New starter up here. Inner primary there. New outer primary there. So that's what we've got to take over here and put right there. Okay, so that's where we're at with Hot Donna. So in the next video, what you're going to see is us attaching all of those parts to the engine and the transmission. Keep an eye out for the drivetrain part 3 video, which should be coming out 2 weeks after you see this video, and there'll be a little link to it right here. So if you don't see a little link right there, that means the video is not up yet or has not been released on YouTube. So the best way to follow that is to subscribe to the channel. So YouTube, as always, I appreciate you coming by the shop. Ride safe, handle your business, save some money, and cut!